I've always wanted to start a company called Thank You for Calling, How May I Help You? Then my receptionist will have to answer the phone like, thank you for calling, how may I help you, how may I help you? A guy and a parrot sit down on an airplane. The guy finds it weird, but if people can bring dogs, you can also bring parrots, he thinks. Moments later comes the flight attendant. Good evening, can I serve you anything? The parrot says, bring a nice cold beer, yo. The attendant is startled by it, but well, the client is always right. She then comes back with beer. The parrot chugs it and says again, now I'm in the mood for some wine. Bring me a red wine, you. The man, seeing the opportunity, says, can you bring me a glass of water, please? Thank you. The attendant grabs the wine, but forgets the glass of water. She comes back, and the parrot says, God, you're a piece of shit. I've told you already I don't like dry wine. Bring me a sweet one. And the guy says, and bring my water, please. Just a small glass. Pretty please. Then she goes back to the bar, grabs the wine, but forgets the water again. As she walks back, the guy, annoyed, tries to use the parrot's tactic and says, you stupid. I've told 2 times already to bring me my water. The attendant is done with it. That's it. I won't tolerate this treatment no more. She then goes to the pilot and tells him about the parrot and the man. The pilot goes to the both of them and says, you two are cursing everybody in this airplane? That's it. You're out. He then grabs both, opens the door, and kicks them out of the airplane. As both of them are falling, the parrot says, bro, for someone that doesn't have wings, you're really f***ing brave. When Beethoven passed away, he was buried in a churchyard. A couple days later, the town drunk was walking through the cemetery and heard some strange noise coming from the area where Beethoven was buried. Terrified, the drunk ran and got the priest to come and listen to it. The priest bent close to the grave and heard some faint, unrecognizable music coming from the grave. Frightened, the priest ran and got the town magistrate. When the magistrate arrived, he bent his ear to the grave, listened for a moment, and said, ah, yes, that's Beethoven's 9th Symphony, being played backwards. He listened a while longer and said, there's the 8th Symphony, and it's backwards too, most puzzling. So the magistrate kept listening. There's the 7th, the 6th, the 5th! Suddenly the realization of what was happening dawned on the magistrate. He stood up and announced to the crowd that had gathered in the cemetery, my fellow citizens, there's nothing to worry about. It's just Beethoven decomposing. A lady about 8 months pregnant got on a bus. She noticed the man opposite her was smiling at her. She immediately moved to another seat. This time the smile turned into a grin, so she moved again. The man seemed more amused. When on the 4th move, the man burst out laughing. She complained to the driver, and he had the man arrested. The case came up in court. The judge asked the man, about 20 years old, what he had to say for himself. The young man replied, well, Your Honor, it was like this. When the lady got on the bus, I couldn't help but notice her condition. She sat down under a sign that said, the Double Mint twins are coming, and I grinned. Then she moved and sat under a sign that said, Logan's liniment will reduce the swelling, and I had to smile. Then she placed herself under a deodorant sign that said, William's big stick did the trick, and I could hardly contain myself. But Your Honor, when she moved the 4th time and sat under a sign that said, Goodyear rubber could have prevented this accident, I just lost it. Case dismissed. The housemaid approached the lady of the house one sunny afternoon, a determined look on her face. Madam, I need a raise, she declared. The lady raised an eyebrow, curious. Oh, and what exactly do you have in mind? The maid smiled confidently. I'd like a Ferrari, madam. The lady's eyes widened in disbelief. A Ferrari? Why in the 7 hells do you think you deserve that? The maid straightened up. Well, for starters, I cook way better than you. The lady's expression turned to one of skepticism. Says who? Your husband, the maid replied with a sly smile. And I do the laundry better than you. The lady crossed her arms. And why do you think that? Your husband told me, the maid said matter-of-factly. And, madam, I'm also much better in bed than you are. The lady's face turned red with anger. Did my husband say that too? The maid shook her head, barely suppressing a grin. No, madam, the pool boy did. Red or yellow? A driver was stuck in a traffic jam on the highway outside Washington, D.C. Nothing was moving. Suddenly, a man knocks on the window. The driver rolls down the window and asks, what's going on? Terrorists have kidnapped the entire U.S. Congress, and they're asking for a $100 million ransom. Otherwise, they are going to douse them all in gasoline and set them on fire. We are going from car to car, collecting donations. How much is everyone giving on an average? The driver asks. The man replies, roughly a gallon. Every day after work, 2 girls would look for their cars together. Since they could never remember where they parked, they would sit around until all the cars were gone and they could spot their vehicles. One girl says, we need to find a faster way to get home. The next day, they come to work on a donkey. After work, they come out and see a donkey tied to the fence. I think we're going to have to wait again, says the one girl. I'm not convinced that's our donkey. Why not? Asks the second girl. The first girl says, well, this donkey only has one and this morning when we rode in, I distinctly overheard someone say, hey, look at those 2 on that donkey.